Hey, everybody. It's Jason. I know you've heard my voice many times in the podcast, and I'm here to tell you about something very interesting coming up. I want to let you know about an incredible opportunity for you to get free tips and strategies to build and monetize your personal brand. My good friend Rory Vaden is a New York Times bestselling author and Hall of Fame speaker, and he and his wife founded a company called Brand Builders Group. And they have put together a huge online summit where they're interviewing some of the most influential personal brands in the world on their never before shared secrets of how they became who they are today. So who's speaking at the summit? We've got Lewis Howes, got Michael Hyatt, Dennis Rodman, Kevin Harrington, Jay Baer, Donald Miller, and more. This is a rare opportunity for you to hear the stories about how they became New York Times bestselling authors, how they built high-paid keynote speaking careers, how they have grown massive online followings, and exactly what they have done to create large, multi-seven-figure businesses. If you're someone who is looking to create any type of influence, you have to check this out. It's totally free, and you're going to be learning from the masters who've actually done this. So I want you to encourage you to head over to the show notes today. And in the show notes, I'm going to put a link to this summit. Again, completely free. Take a look at it. I feel super confident you will find it valuable. And now, enjoy the episode. My guest on the show today is Karin Freeland, who's a recovering corporate workaholic turned author and coach. After years in high-pressure leadership roles at Fortune 500 companies, she's traded in the boardroom for the bedroom. In her brand new book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a penetrating memoir, she recounts the mishaps and misadventures she's had over the last 40 years with a special partner in crime, her vagina, named V. She's also a speaker, and like I mentioned, a coach, focusing on helping women transform their lives and achieve their dreams. Hi, Karin, and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I am delighted to have you on the show today. Karin and I were catching up before we pressed the record button. So Karin and I do not know each other at all. As I've said on the show many times, some of my guests I know very well. I will be interviewing my wife. I know her quite well. Some of my guests I've met a few times, and some we show up on a Zoom and go, hey, let's do a podcast episode. So this is one of those. So Karin, I'm super excited to talk to you about your book and just generally get to know you. So I'm super excited to have you on today.
Thank you. It's so fun to be here. I'm excited to meet your audience.
Yes. All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah. Oh, I think so.
Yeah. And if you're not, we'll do it anyway.
Always a good way to approach life.
Exactly. So Karin, first question for you. What's something that you nerd out about?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people have these like fandoms, right? Like they really geek out over like Game of Thrones or like comics and stuff. So when I first was thinking about this question, I'm like, I don't think I geek out over anything. But then it kind of dawned on me, and I don't know if this is something that people normally geek out about, or I don't know, but I love like working out and eating healthy. Like I'm kind of obsessed with eating organic and making sure that I work out 3 to 4 times a week. I can't really function when I'm not living in that like healthy zone. So I guess that would be like the only thing I can think of that I really geek out over.
Yeah. I'm not going to challenge.
It's not sexy.
I'm not going to challenge you. I guarantee we could come up with something, but I am going to ask you a couple questions. So, as we get to know you, you have a family.
Yes.
Is this the same case with the whole crew in your family?
No, not really. So I'm a little bit out on my own. Now, my husband is really particular about like eating organic. And sometimes I will like cheap out at the grocery store and I'll buy like something that's not organic. And he will be like, what are you doing? He's like, you saved 50 cents. He's like, is it worth our health? And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So, I mean, I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with all the organic stuff just because it seems so expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive.
But no, my one son could sit around and just like chill all day and never lift a weight. And then my other one, he likes to do some stuff now. He's trying to like buff up for the girls at 11 years old, apparently.
Hey, I think that's a good move. I wish I would have buffed up for the girls at 11. Maybe my junior high years would have been a little bit better. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Weren't those the worst? Those were like the most awkward times.
Yeah.
I write about that a lot in the book.
I'm sure you do. And maybe we can like dig in a little bit on this. I'm curious whether it's worse for boys or girls, and it might be equally as bad for both. Those years are just, I think there's a reason I don't remember much of it, because I'm like, oh God, it was very, very strange times. In terms of working out, what's your go-to? Like, are you like a Peloton rider? Do you like to jog?
No.
Like, what's your thing?
So I don't like to do the same thing all the time. Like, you know how some people just like they have a Peloton bike or something. Yeah. I like to keep it interesting because I don't like my muscles to get muscle memory. And then it becomes really easy to work out. I like to feel the burn. So this is what I mean. Like, this is kind of like the weirdest thing to geek out about, but I'm very intentional about my workouts. So I used to do a lot of like DVDs. So like Denise Austin DVDs, and we had a Max trainer, and I just kind of alternated through those. But when COVID hit, I started taking a lot of online classes. So I was doing like hip hop yoga, and I was taking like online dance classes to like rekindle some of my passions and things from my past that I loved doing. And I just started having so much fun with that I just kind of like alternate a different workout every time. And
that's fun.
Well, it is, but then you're kind of like always perpetually sore. So
well, that's like good sore. It
is a good sore. Yeah. And I kind of crave that, but I did like the Billy Blanks, like Tae Bo thing this week. And now
you did Billy Blanks. That is so like late 90s. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like retro like that, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome, Karin. We're learning a lot about your personality in the first 5 minutes, just purely based on this answer.
Well, that's the point, right? I guess.
You're like, can we move on? This question's boring me. I'm ready for the very next thing. That's awesome.
No, it's all good.
Well, it's funny because I asked you what you nerd out about, and you said, I don't know everything. And then you just specifically mentioned things that you used to love doing that you're trying to get back into. I would assert that perhaps those are things you nerd out about.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely grew up dancing competitively. So for me, that was one of the things, and we probably will talk about this later, but when I went through a bit of a midlife crisis, that was one of the things that I really tried to rekindle, even though I know I wasn't going to be as good as I used to be, but just kind of like forgiving myself and giving up on any expectations and just allowing myself to feel joy again from doing something that I've always loved was so freeing and so much fun.
Yep.
So I like learned how to pop and lock, and that was like probably cringeworthy, but I had so much fun. I couldn't stop smiling.
What do your sons think about it? Do they watch you dance? Like, are they like, Mom, you're so dorky? Like what do the kids think of it?
Yeah. So definitely some of that stuff, like when I'm doing my dance routines, like, oh, here she goes again. Are you almost done? Like, get off the TV. But actually my oldest one, like I said, he's kind of getting to that age now where he is conscious of his body or whatever. Mm-hmm. So he'll be like, we should go for a run today. Let's go for a run. And
that's awesome.
Like, I love it. Yeah.
That's
like
awesome.
We get to do that together and spend time and talk about things while we're running and just, have a little quality time.
Yeah. I'm thinking to myself, if I like to give, I have 2 younger kids than yours. They're 5 and almost a year. So they're not quite same place, but I was laughing. I think if I was in yours, I would say something like, how do you think I met your dad and why you're here? It's like, these are the moves that like made it, that this is why we're all here. So you might want to take a look.
Oh yeah. He definitely saw me dancing on the beer tub in college. And
exactly. Absolutely. This is how we became a family. It's awesome. Totally. All right, Karin. So we're going to talk about comfort zone. I know like you do a lot of coaching, you know what that means. Like comfort zone for all of us is that it's the thing that like, not only it's comfortable, but it's the easy thing. It's kind of in your, I'll go do that thing. It doesn't bother me. I don't get stressed about it. What's something that's inside of your comfort zone that might be outside of somebody else's? And it's a little bit of a trick question for somebody like you, because I'm taking 2 things off the table: speaking and writing a book.
Okay.
Because most people are like, oh, public speaking. And I'm like, yeah, but you're a speaker. So that would, and it might still be at your comb, but what's something different that comes to mind?
Yeah. So I am hyper organized. I'm a Virgo. So I really lean in hard to that. And I am like very particular about my workspace, my physical environment, and making sure that is well organized. And also just like my calendar and projects that I manage. I mean, I spent 15 years in corporate. So, I had to be organized there as well. I mean, I guess you don't have to be. There are plenty of people who weren't, but that was definitely one of my strengths and one of the things that I think I was able to help other people around me with.
Are you organized in terms of like, if we were to take a tour of your house, is it everything's in its specific place? Like you have a very specific way that things are going to go?
Well, my stuff is where it belongs.
Well, you do have 2 kids, so let's be clear. You're like,
I do.
No, yeah.
Whatever their room is different. Yeah. He has a little bit of a laundry issue. Like he does his own laundry, but then it just sits in baskets for days and days and days. And he doesn't put it away.
I can really, I'll just leave it at this. I really identify with what you just said, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Fair enough. But I think that I'm like really in my zone when things are organized. When there is chaos and disorder, it stresses me out. It overwhelms me. Yeah. And I can't really focus because all my attention is on that thing that's not in the place it needs to be.
Interesting. Okay. So let's flip that question. What's something that's uncomfortable for you that's likely going to be comfortable or in somebody else's comfort zone?
Yeah. And I think that this might surprise you, given that I wrote a book called The Ins and Outs of My Vagina. But being really authentic and open and honest actually doesn't come very easily for me. So it is very easy for me to be open and honest about things like parenthood or work-life balance, or like there's certain topics where I don't have a problem being an open book, but I have never been very open or forthcoming with things that surround my sex life or women's health issues like UTIs, periods, like, things that are happening to women that, my book is like all about, but we don't talk about them. And I've never really done that before. So that was really scary for me. And there were a couple of times, I'm not going to lie, where I really thought about not publishing the book.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I got really freaked out and I was like, I can't believe I'm telling people this. Like people are going to read about my most intimate moments with my husband or with random guys in high school and college. And like, I don't know if I want them to know this about me. And then, so I had to overcome that. I had to get real comfortable with being uncomfortable in order to actually get this book to market.
I was going to ask you this a little bit later in the episode, but I'm going to just ask you this now.
Yeah.
What is the driving factor behind this book for you? Like why the book?
Yeah. So there's like a lot to unpack there, but I think like the 2 sentences or whatever, like the Cliff Note version would just be, I never really wanted another woman to feel alone and to feel some of the ways that I've felt over the course of my life. Because I didn't have someone to talk to, because I didn't think what was happening to my body was normal. And so if I can just debunk those myths in a really comedic and fun way that is relatable, then I think women will be more comfortable talking about these topics, whether it's to a friend, a parent, a sibling, a coworker, even a doctor, right? Whoever is in their life that could be that trusted source for them. I want to make that okay and give them that permission to talk about topics that people think are taboo. Yeah,
that's a cool lesson for all of us is when you're in the discomfort, what's the impact you want to make that's going to have and this in coaching, it's like, what's the thing that you can anchor to that's going to pull you through when you run up against the resistance? And it sounds for you, it's literally making an impact on serving the people that you once were. That's what it comes down to. And you want to learn from me. I've been there. I've done it. I haven't done it. I have done it, et cetera, et cetera. Hey, here's some things that hopefully will have you avoid these things. Or what I'm also hearing is like not feeling alone, that like you're normal. Like these things are normal as a female.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the reasons that this has been so uncomfortable for me and outside of my comfort zone is I've operated so much of my life, especially when I was in corporate, but even growing up, where I thought doing things or saying things that I thought people thought I should do, or that I knew they wanted to hear. Like I am the queen of interviewing. I am the queen of talking to people and answering questions because I know exactly what you want me to say and what you want me to hear, what you want to hear from me. And I will give it to you, whether it's the truth or not.
Yeah.
But that's actually was so toxic for me and kind of part of the reason that I ended up in a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't being authentic, even with myself.
Yeah.
I told myself lies that I just all of a sudden became my truth, even though it really wasn't. Yeah.
Sounds like you just you got out of whack with who you wanted to be in the world, with who you thought you had to be in the world, which I think is, I think it's normal for all of us. I think for working mothers, especially, that is a very common thing.
Yeah.
Very common thing. Like where you play two roles. And I will read the book, and my wife is going to read the book. I told her I'm going to have you on, and she said, oh, I can't wait to read the book. So I can't wait to hear more about your journey. Cause I think there's lessons for dudes too here, right? Like we may not have the same body parts, but there's definitely men struggle with these things too. We just are even less comfortable talking about it than you are. We're like, nope, nothing to see here. We're good.
Yeah, I've got a couple of 5-star reviews actually on Amazon from guys. So the book is definitely resonating with other people too.
That's awesome.
Not just women.
That's awesome. So I think this is a good segue into the next question around speaking. And let's say that let's say this podcast is going to be listened to by everybody in the entire world. And let's pretend that it gets translated. It doesn't. Not everybody's going to listen to it. We're not going to have 350 million people listening to this in the United States. Sorry, not going to be quite that reach. But if you knew you were going to impact like a global audience, what would you speak to us on, and what would be your call to action to us?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things as a coach, and when I have done some speaking engagements, is really to talk about the power of yet. The word yet. I love this word, and I wish I had really known it and adopted this concept so much earlier in my life, because I think it would have just taken a lot of pressure off. Right. And so I talk a lot about, I've recently opened up quite a bit about my midlife crisis and this feeling of like, I'm wasting my life, but I don't actually know what I want to do yet. Right. And so there's this very pivotal moment where I am crying in a bathroom because I had given a presentation at work about an event that was coming up. And like, I talked a country music star into coming and speaking. I built this booth that resembled Main Street USA. Like nothing about this event was ordinary. It was the most amazing thing you've ever seen. We spent like $400,000 to put together this show. I mean, it was a huge investment. And my team and I in marketing had been working on it for like 3 months, almost nonstop. But really it takes like a year to prep.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I was new in my role. It was a new team. So I was like really excited about how we were all gelling together. And I got done with the presentation and the president looked at me and he goes, well, I'm bored. And I was like, you're bored? Did I hear you right? But of course, the first thing that comes into my mind is like tears, right? And I'm just like, oh my God, he doesn't like what we did, or I did a really bad job of presenting this or whatever. Totally internalize it. And I'm like sitting there in this meeting and with my glasses on, but I'm just thinking, don't blink, because if you blink, that tear is going to eke out onto this conference table. So just stare bug-eyed at everyone and don't say a word. And so at the same time, I had this thought in my mind. I was like, I want to get up on this table in my skirt suit from Express. And I want to kick off every mother effing laptop. And I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this podcast.
Yes. So please do. Like, bring your truth.
Oh my gosh. I wanted to kick every single executive's laptop and iPad and cell phone off the table. But obviously I didn't, right? But I just went. And then as soon as the meeting was over, I went and cried in the women's room for like 20 minutes. And I just kept thinking like, what else could I be doing? This isn't it. This isn't for me. I'm not happy here, but I don't know what else to do. And I think, this idea of yet, I didn't know it yet. Right. Even when I started writing this book, I didn't know that I was going to become a motivational speaker. I didn't know that I was going to become a life coach, But once I started making one little change, once I started writing, I got excited again. I started seeing the world from a different view. I was hopeful again. There were possibilities. It just took off. It was like a life of its own, right?
Yeah.
And even when I said, hey, I want to go get certified, okay, I want to become a life coach. Well, I'm not one yet, but I'm going to be one, right? You take your first client and it's like, oh my God, I hope I'm good at this. I hope I ask the right questions. I hope they actually experience a transformation. You don't know.
You're like, fingers crossed. Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I hope they really pay me. And they don't feel like they didn't get their money's worth. Yeah. And then you get to the end and they tell you how much of an impact you had in their life and they want to sign up with you again and this, that, the other. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I am it now. Okay, now I want to take it to the next level. I'm not there yet, but I will be. So I just love the whole concept of the power of yet. And I think, my call to action is just make that first change, right? Take that first step in the direction of where you think you want to go and see how it feels. Try it on for size, because when you make that one change, they all get easier.
Yeah. As I was listening to your story, maybe you can help me out. Maybe you'll be able to help me out. Maybe you won't. Was it the show Ally McBeal where she would play in her mind what she wanted to happen? And then, I didn't watch it, but I'm thinking of a show, and it was a little before my time. I think we're about the same age. There was a show where it would be like the thing that they wanted to happen in their mind and they would play it as it actually happened. And then it would cut to so I'm just picturing like in your television show, it's like watching you like, you motherfuckers. You're fucking bored and you like get up, like slam the laptops and like all these, and I don't know if it was probably like mixed sex in the room, but like these, I'm just picturing like these white
mostly
dudes.
Men,
like,
right?
Mostly white guys probably. Cause like statistically probably, and you're like sitting in the back there like, oh my God. And I'm like picturing you like doing this amazing scene. And you're like, I'm going to be an author and a speaker and a coach. And then it like cuts to you, like actually like blinking into the camera, like not going to cry, not going to cry.
Oh, I love that.
That's so good.
And we've actually written an outline for the first 10 episodes of a TV show for the ins and outs. So I'm really hoping that we can get this picked up.
I think the branding of it is perfect for a television show. Can't wait to have you back on once you get that deal signed. We'll talk about TV. All right, Karin, we're going to take a really brief commercial break and we'll be right back after this.
The Talking to Cool People podcast is brought to you by Jason Frizzell Coaching. Jason works with amazing people who are looking to find and develop their passion and purpose and create their journey to wherever it is they want to go. Check us out at jasonfrizzell.com, Facebook, or on Instagram. Jason loves hearing from anyone who thinks it would be cool to connect, to be coached, or to be a guest on our show. Email him at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com or DM him on Facebook and Instagram. And now, back to some more amazing conversation on Talking to Cool People.
Karin.
Yes.
You ready to keep going? Or are you ready? Are you calling it? Are you gonna slam the computer and walk away? Or are we gonna keep going today?
No way. This is fun. I could do this all day.
All right. Well, just for the audience, for everybody listening, Karin's not wearing her glasses. So if I do make you cry at some point, I'll probably see that tiny little tear.
You will.
We'll see. Well, are you a crier?
You know what? I cry when I'm pissed. Like I get so freaking angry that my emotions just bubble over that it ends in tears. Yeah. And I'm almost never crying about the actual thing that's happening. Yeah. It's like a culmination. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. I think, doing some research on you, you've done some acting, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, and I think this may be a good time to maybe, if you want to speak a little bit about this, I do a lot of improv comedy. And one of the things that I learned is the emotion of sadness and the emotion of anger physiologically is very similar. And one of my improv teachers said something that really stuck with me. Thanks, Chris. His name's Chris Griggs. He said that most actors have a hard time playing one of the two of them. Like one of the two of them is really accessible to you and one is really hard. I'm almost never true. So I'll just speak for myself and I want to hear how this goes. And I think you and I are similar. I get angry, frustrated, annoyed really easily. So for me, that's very accessible. I don't get sad that often. And I'm just not a crier. It's not because I'm a dude. It's just not where I do it. But like, for me, like, it's very, like, I have a lot of access to like anger, and it's usually not very strong anger. I don't have a lot of access to sadness. It sounds like maybe that's similar to you. It shows up as more of like an anger or frustration.
100%. That totally resonates with me. You know, I can play, and actually I used to do some improv as well through UCB when I was living in New York.
Nice.
Oh, I loved it. It was so much fun. But, you know, there's always this temptation too in improv to go the angry route, but like nobody likes the jerk ass.
No, that's the first thing they teach you is don't fight with your scene partner, because there's enough fighting in the world. Like, build us a scene. Karin and I are going to build a scene that's going to have you be like, oh, these people like each other and they have shared goals and they want to create something, not like, you know, like, man, we could geek out on improv. I remember we had I just have to share this now because this is improv and this is the way my mind works. I had somebody in my level 2 class. We did this whole scene and we were doing like a Herald, right? So we were doing like a whole 3-set series thing and all these. And my teacher called him the scene killer because you would literally like set up the scene and you'd have like, you could have this whole thing going on. And then he would drop something in that would be argumentative and like just completely out of left field that would just kill the whole thing. Yeah.
It's so hard. I mean, you need a group that can really gel. Because otherwise it just doesn't, and it just doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, you know, the question I have for you in this section is very open-ended for a reason. So like, what do you want us to know about you?
That's interesting. Cause there's all kinds of interesting stuff that we could talk about, but I feel like you're going to get a lot of really interesting stuff from the book. But I think, you know, I would share that I'm happily married, because I think there is something in our culture today where women are on this like terror about like not being with a man or not needing a man. And I absolutely think that's fine. I don't need my husband per se, right? Like I can get along without him. But life is better with him. Yeah. And I actually really love being married. So I find it interesting that, you know, there's a lot of people out there today that just kind of want to like have this whole cry for like being single. And yet a lot of clients that I have that are older who are single are coming to me because they want help in the relationship area because they feel like something is missing and they don't have that deep connection. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that I want to share, because there's also a lot of assumptions that are made when you write a book about your vagina.
Like what? I've never written a book about this topic. So you'll have to educate me. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's an assumption. Well, I know there's an assumption because some people actually who I went to high school with were sort of texting around asking like, does Karin have an open marriage? Because what does that have to do with writing a book? Well, because what could I possibly have to say about my vagina when I've been with someone for, 19, 20 years? Because we met in college. So they sort of automatically assumed, well, this book must be all sex and maybe they have like an open marriage. We don't. I'm a very jealous person. I don't share very well. Ask anybody who went on spring break with me in 1998. I like hoarded my own Dr. Pepper and Pepperidge Farm Milano cookies for the trip. And I like shared with no one. Yeah. They don't let me live that one down.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I just kind of like to like put that out there. The other thing that you might find really interesting, or at least comedic, because I'm always only 2 steps away from humor, but
yes,
I've never been sent a dick pic.
You've never been sent a dick pic?
Never been sent a dick pic. And so this is a little bit of a debate with some of my friends because they're like, you should consider yourself lucky because they're really offensive. And I'm sure
I don't know any women that likes them.
No, I don't actually want one, but I'm sort of offended that no one's ever wanted to send me one. Like, am I not good enough for a dick pic? I'm confused. It makes me feel sort of like bad about myself. Can you appreciate that?
You remind me so much of a friend and a fellow podcast guest. Her name is Jenna Kingsley. I'm actually going to connect the two of you. She has a podcast. She has a podcast called Social Studies, and it's recommend it to everybody listening. Her style is she's like a Jerry Seinfeld, but female.
Right.
It's hilarious. So like this topic is she would say that she'd be like, I don't really want one, but I kind of, why do I not have one? Why haven't nobody sending me one? But so
I
Karin,
want to be invited to the party and then say, no, thank you. I can't make it, but like, at least invite me.
Do you want one from your husband, or would this be an external, like somebody from the outside? If you had to choose, somebody,
my husband, I guess, could send me one, but he's not really into sending pictures. So
it's also, you've seen that for 20 years. You're like, whatever. Like,
right. And that's the thing. Like, I don't actually want to see it. Because that's the thing. I have my own veiny pickle at home. Like, we're good. But I'm just kind of annoyed that I'm not, like, am I not hot enough? Like, what is the deal? Why can't I get someone to send me something?
I feel like I really want to like have a micro laser coaching session on your context on not getting a dick pic. Now we're going to get into the juicy part of this episode. We're going to talk about your book, but we're also going to talk about what's missing in your life, Karin, that has like, what is it that you need here? I don't know. This feels like you need to do some deep work around this.
I guess so. Maybe I do.
That is hilarious. You're like, step one, I want people to know that I'm happily married. Step two, I've never received a dick pic and I'm pretty unhappy about it. That's amazing. Very funny. Now
that you're regurgitating this to me, it does seem sort of ironic, but that's how my mind works.
That's great. I love it. Yeah. You and Jen are going to get along tremendously well. I want to ask you, so what's the secret? What's the secret to your happy marriage? Because I don't think there's one, there's not one thing. What's the secret for you and your husband's marriage, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think a lot of communication. Like we have notoriously in the past, like really done like the cold shoulder thing. And that is not helpful, or
it isn't,
no, it turns out it's not. I mean, I tried it for a solid first 10 years of our marriage.
Is this like I don't need anything from you type of cold shoulder thing?
It's kind of like you were a dick to the kids. I'm not going to talk to you for a couple of days. I want you to know I'm really unhappy with how you handled that situation, or like, whatever. So we really try to talk things out, and we'll kind of call each other out. Like, hey, you're being really angry about the dishes. Is this really about the dishes, or is something else going on? And then it's like, the other day when we were in the store and you said you didn't like how that thing looked on me, it's really bothering me, like whatever, and then we really are able to talk it out. And I think the other thing too is creating intimacy outside of just sex, and one of the things that we did is we cut the cable. So we don't have TV. We haven't had TV since October of 2019. And
that's good timing.
Not replace it, right?
You're like, we don't need this. You're like, we're going to travel all the time. We're going to see our friends. We're going to spend way more time with people. And then like March of 2020, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. But actually it's been great not having the news, because I can kind of live in my own little ignorant bubble, which is also mentally really great. So my mom has to call me when there's like hurricanes and things coming. She's like, do you know? And I'm like, I didn't. Thanks for letting me know. It's excellent information. But, so I think once we didn't have TV, because that was our nightly routine, right? Yeah. Like sit down in front of the TV, scream at the news station from 8 till 10:30 about everything that's wrong with this world.
Oh my God.
And then we'd be like in a tizzy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is toxic. We have to just get rid of this and not have this in our lives. So, but then all of a sudden you're like, well, shit, what do I do for 2.5 hours? I guess we're going to talk. And so we found ourselves in like these deep philosophical conversations, and it was like getting to know him all over again. So it was kind of fun and interesting.
I'm going to stereotype right now. All the guys listening are like, oh my God, no.
I know.
Got to talk to my wife every night. That sounds horrible. I got to talk to the kids. No.
You just put them to bed.
Yeah. Are you two sports fans at all?
No. So he's not. I like sports more than he does.
Okay.
So I had a hard time not being able to watch the New Jersey Devils. So we would like go out sometimes to like a bar or like a pub or somewhere and like have dinner at one of the tables so we could watch the games.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is kind of more expensive than cable. I'm like, it's fine.
You're like, you're like, but honey, I'm getting a little liquored up. And
there you go.
But that is so interesting. I'm just thinking about right now with I don't know exactly how old your kids are. We haven't talked about it. We have a 5-year-old. And if we took her tablet away, the world would literally end.
Yeah.
For her, and for us. That it, like, as much as I hate to say it, because of COVID, like that's the thing. Like I don't think we could survive. It's the best babysitter ever.
Yeah.
So maybe you can give me some pro tips offline on how we pry that thing. I mean, like pry that thing out of her strong little 5-year-old hands and come up with some other things. But yeah, I'm impressed. I don't think we'd be able to give up TV. My wife likes to watch. She doesn't watch much TV, but she's a trash TVer when she gets into it. So she'll watch Bravo, and I'm more like I'm more of a snob. So I'm going to watch Breaking Bad or The Sopranos or Mad Men. Like that's more my thing.
You'd be surprised though. You think it's going to be really hard. And I thought it was going to be really hard. I mean, I kind of thought he was crazy. I was like, I'm not sure about this. I mean, I was a little hesitant. And honestly, like maybe the first month was a little iffy. And now it's like, we don't even miss it at all. Like it's not even a thought. The kids don't miss it. And they still have a DVD player, so they can watch some of the DVDs and stuff that we have. If I really am like, hey, I'm on a podcast or I have a call, like I need you sitting somewhere quiet. But yeah, it's really actually very doable.
So what happens when your television show gets picked up?
Then we're going to go to a bar. No, I don't know.
You'd be like, I'm going to watch the Devils and the ins and the outs and the ins and outs.
Exactly.
That's awesome, yes. Karen. That's amazing. So around the news. So it sounds like you also don't like read the news on the internet. Cause that's how I get my news. Like every morning I go to CNN. I just like, hey, what's in the headlines? I'll scan through. I mostly land on sports. That tells you like my penchants for most of this stuff like you're talking about. But so you don't even like look at the news and see. So if I said to you like, hey, do you know that X, Y, and like, so the thing in Kabul last month with like the Afghanistan's leaving and all that, you don't know about that when it's happening. You hear about it from other people.
I hear about it from other people and had some very limited, because when you open your browser on the web, it's like the first thing that pops up, right? So I see a couple of headlines there. But every time I get tempted and I scroll through, I see something like, 12-year-old shot in the face by parent. And I'm like, what?
There's a lot of stuff out there. Not good stuff.
It's not good stuff. And I think I internalize these things sometimes. Like, I'm like, how could this person be a parent? How could they do this? And I get really frustrated. And it's like, Karen, you can't control it. You have there's nothing you can do but pray and like to help this kid who's now lost his life. And it makes me just feel sad. So I'm like, if I could just cut that out. I mean, I'm not trying to be totally disconnected from the world, but like my world, and I know we're going to talk about kind of how I see the world, but it's like, what do I see out my window? Like that's what I want to be concerned with and where I can have the biggest impact.
Yeah. And impact with your husband and with your kids. Like that's the place you can make a difference every single day. You're not going to make a difference in public safety in New York City.
Right. Exactly. No.
All right, Karen, I want you to ask me a question. So what would you like to ask me now that we've known each other for about 45 minutes? What would you like to ask me that I can answer for you?
Yeah. So I was going to ask you if you're going to read the book, and if so, why? And it sounds like, you said why, you said you would, but I'm interested in what is it about the book that sort of draws you in, or that you think you're going to read, that you're excited about hearing?
I like this. Karen's using the podcast as market research. She's like, this is a dual purpose question. I think it's interesting, but also you're like, let me get out my notebook so I can tell my publisher that these are what this guy said, a straight man said. First of all, I really like, you've heard, it's brilliant branding. It's hilarious. It says a lot about who you are. I'm a big fan of like Jen Sincero. Like I like strong female writers because it's a person. I just think that, this is just my perspective, just my opinion. I think women comedic writers are much better at being authentic. Like the men's stories are usually like, how did I overcome? I had some stuff happen to me, but I'm a guy, so it's all going to be good. Women are more like, this shit sucks. Like, I don't know if you ever read like How to Make Money Like a Badass. I don't know if you ever read that book, but she's like, I was living in a garage and with like SpaghettiOs and it fucking sucked. I listened to it on audio. It was hilarious. She's hilarious. But like Rachel Hollis, like, what's the struggle that got me to where I am? I think men do that, but I just think the women's perspective is a little bit more interesting to me, partly because I'm not a woman, straight guy. Yeah. So like for me, I'm interested in that. Selfishly, I have a 5-year-old daughter who will be a woman someday. So I'm super curious as a scared to death of like, oh, wait, at some point she's going to figure out her body a little bit or have questions. So I think there'll be some things as a dad that will help me. And then because I met you and I like you and I think it'll be entertaining, like based on what I'm hearing from you and like the way, the energy you bring and the things we're talking about, I think it's going to be funny and I like to be entertained.
Yeah. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So I will read it. My wife's going to read it. I'll leave you at least a 2-star. I'll leave you a 2-star review, maybe a 3-star review. It depends. It depends on.
I don't know. I think you're going to end up with a 5-star based on, precedent that's been set.
The 2 dudes who have done it. And the reason you don't have many reviews is that literally just came out, which we're going to talk about. So it's not like you're like, I've had this out for 5 years and I have 2 guys reading. It's literally like 3 days. It's 3 days in the marketplace. So I'd like to offer you the opportunity to ask me another question since I kind of answered it already. Yeah. What do you got for me?
What is it that makes you so drawn to sports? Like, what do you love about it so much that you get sucked in?
I'm super competitive. And now that I'm in my 40s, I don't have a way to compete in most things anymore.
Ooh.
So I'm just like you're a Devils fan. My team is the Minnesota Vikings. I'm from Minnesota originally.
Nice.
So there's, first of all, I love football. Like I love the sport of football. I like the science of it. I like the art of it. I like how it's actually quite complicated. Mm-hmm. I grew up playing hockey, so I'm a big hockey fan too. Hockey is just not that complicated compared to football. Like, I mean, yes, there are plays you run and all those sorts of things, but people can watch a hockey game and kind of be like, I kind of get it. They're trying to go up and down the ice and put this little black puck in the thing. But football, you're like, okay, I understand they're trying to get down there, but then they can maybe kick it. Maybe they're going to run it. Maybe they're going to pass it. But wait, they just threw a yellow flag. What does that thing mean? And why is this guy running across the field and they haven't hiked the ball yet? There's all these things that I happen to understand because I've always been a football fan.
Right.
But overall, I grew up in the Twin Cities. I grew up in the suburb of St. Paul. And I was just always a big sports fan because I played a lot of sports. I'm pretty athletic. I'm very competitive. And when you don't get a chance to do that, then it's like my outlet to look at, and it's just entertaining. And the other thing is now I'm a huge fantasy football player. So I gotta watch the stuff and make some, like it's light gambling, right? It's like you pay like a little bit of fee at the beginning of the season, but I'm competing and I just like winning. That's what it comes down to. I like winning. And I guess the way I can kind of win is when my team wins, although they lost on Sunday to the Bengals, which was not ideal. They lost in overtime. But yeah, that's why I love sports. I also think the other thing that I love about sports is like performance. Like, how do you always increase what you're doing? And I'm actually not a huge college sports fan. Like I like college football. I think I shared this with you. I married into a Ohio State Buckeye family. My wife went to Ohio State. So that's football perennial powerhouse. Also lost last Saturday.
Oh,
yeah. But I like the idea of like, how do you maximize your performance? That's the kind of coaching I do. I mostly do coaching for businesses, startups. Like, what's the edge? Because let's take football, for example. Those dudes are all amazing. They're all some of the best athletes in the world. What's the thing? What's the 1% that person does differently? For some of them, it's their head.
Right.
For some of them, it's like, let's just take like a Tom Brady. He's like the combination of, he's not the strongest dude. He's not a fast dude, but he's tremendously mentally tough. He's incredibly smart and he takes amazing care of his body. So that's how he does it. And then he's just a naturally gifted quarterback, but he wasn't out of college. And then you have other people like that come out number 1 in the draft and they like crash out in 2 years. What's the difference? So I'm always interested in that. It's some of it's conditioning, some of it's mental, and some of it's the last thing I'll say about this is like a lot of it has to do with the people around you. So who's your coach? What's your coach doing to bring you up? Is your coach recognizing that like, hey, this dude's got the best arm in the NFL, but it's not accurate? How do we work on that? Do we work on it? Do we let him go? That sort of thing. So I'm into all that. As you can tell, football is my go-to, but I love like tennis. Like I love, I played tennis too. So I watched Djokovic not get his golden grand slam. I don't know if you know what that means, but
nope.
He won 3 of the 4 major tournaments. It wouldn't have been a golden grand slam because he didn't win the gold medal at the Olympics, but he won Wimbledon, the French Open, and Australian Open. He did not win the US Open. He would have been the first person to do that since like the 60s. So,
wow.
Yeah. So that's why I like sports.
That's awesome.
Good question.
I love hockey. I think it's like such a sexy sport too. Like, I don't know, there's something very like primal about watching men like duke it out on the ice. And like, I'm just like, oh yeah, keep going.
Have you ever
another fight, guys?
Yeah. Have you ever been on a hockey rink right after a game, or in a in a locker room after a game?
No.
It smells horrible.
Oh, my son played hockey.
It
so opening
horrible.
His bag was like, ugh.
Yeah,
like you accidentally leave it in the car, or you don't unpack it the second you get home. Well,
you can't because you're sweating your butt off, and then the sweat freezes on the stuff when you're not using it. It's horrible. It smells so bad. Hockey players sweat their ass off.
Yes,
because you got a lot of stuff on.
Yeah, and you're up and you never stop moving. Really,
stop moving. Even when you're on a line change, you're only sitting for like 2 to 3 minutes, and then you're back on the ice again. And you're busting your ass for 1 minute to 2 minutes. So awesome question. Nobody's ever asked me about that. So thank you, Karin.
Really?
I love it. Nobody's ever asked me why I like sports, but I've never really said like, oh, I really like sports either. So maybe that's why. Maybe I think we're doing some improv. I'm offering you something and you're like, hey, let's take this and run with it. Perfect. Look at that. I love it. All right. What are you passionate about?
Yeah, right now I would say having a bigger purpose, something that is bigger than me. And being a workaholic, I thought you were a recovering workaholic. Well, right. So when I was a workaholic, but thank you for the clarification, because that could have been confusing. So when I was in corporate and I was just working 24/7 and really put stock in nothing else other than my job and who I was in my job, there was no time for me to have a bigger purpose. And then when we had these 2 deaths in my family, I suddenly was faced with my own mortality. It was like I was staring death in the face. Even though I really wasn't, that was how I felt. Mm-hmm. And so I started realizing like, I don't have hobbies. I don't have anything where I feel like I'm making an impact in someone else's life. So like, what is my purpose here? Why am I here? And so now that I've kind of gone through that whole big, deep valley of midlife crisis and come out, thankfully, on the other end, I'm really intentional about making sure that the things I'm doing have a bigger impact on someone else's life. So I joined when we moved to South Carolina. I didn't really know anyone. And so I joined the Greenville Junior League. So that it's a women's service organization. And so we do a lot of volunteering and helping with, economic mobility and sex trafficking, like trying to, provide a safe place for people who have been victimized by that. And we have like a nearly new shop where we resell like higher end things for people who, don't have the financial ability to go buy them new. And it's really been such I don't know if exciting is the right word, but fulfilling way to give back and to feel like there is something bigger than just me. And also with my book, a portion of the proceeds are going to go to the Alliance for Period Supplies. And so you can check them out, allianceforperiodsupplies.org. But basically what they do is they get period supplies to women in need, of lower economic status who can't afford period products. And this is something that like didn't really dawn on me in my younger years. Like, I would get my period. No. And I just open up the cabinet under the sink and there was tampons and there were pads and there was whatever I would need. And it would just sort of appeared every month and there was a stash for me. So when I got older, I can't remember if it was our church or our town, but somebody was doing a donation drive for period supplies. And I was like, I was just almost confused for a minute. Like, well, why would they need donations of period supplies? So I was like, oh, right. Because they're hella expensive. And some women actually have to decide between feeding their family or buying tampons. And that just really bothered me that women have to stay home from work or from school or college or whatever stage they are in their life, because they don't have what they need to go out and function in society. And so like, how can women get ahead if they can't even get to the playing field? Yeah. To use a sports analogy.
There it is. Back to the sports. I love it.
Right. So for me, that has just been the thing right now that I'm really passionate about, carving out time every week, to in some capacity give back in a bigger way.
Yeah. Something you said, I had something hit me as you were speaking about that. I want to go back to the, like the midlife crisis thing. I think John Mayer calls it a quarter life crisis.
Yeah. I was saying a third life crisis.
Yeah. Like a third life crisis.
Same ring.
No.
So I just went with midlife.
I'm curious, how does motherhood relate to all of this? Because to me, that seems like a big societal. There's definitely a context in society that, like, for parents, and I'm just hopefully I don't want to stereotype, but I think there is there is something in society that a woman, when she has children, like, that should be the thing that, like, oh my God, I'm a mother now, and yes, I work my job, but that's secondary. And how did that all relate to your experience? Because I would actually question whether that's. I think that kind of seems to be the purveying theme. It's never talked about. What was your experience with that as a working mother? What was that like? Where did you think when you had your first child and then your second child, was this the thing that's going to be like, oh, this is the thing that's going to give me what I needed? And it sounds like it didn't. There was still something missing for you.
Yeah. So I wanted to be a mom very badly. I really wanted kids. I was so excited, but that maternity leave was so hard. And I was like, I actually called work and was like, I'm ready to come back.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of women talk about this. I don't think a lot of women talk about this. Yeah.
They don't. And honestly, about 80% of the clients that I coach are working moms. Like, that is kind of my sweet spot. And there's a lot of moms who feel, guilt on both sides. They feel guilty if they're focusing on their work, and they feel guilty if they're focusing on their family. And so I do a lot of work to help strip away those guilty feelings, but to put up the appropriate boundaries in both areas of your life so that you can be really efficient and high functioning in both areas.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but it's possible. And so for me, I always prioritized work. I was the breadwinner, and my husband was awesome. Like, he would be the one who would, make dinner and have dinner on the table when we got home. He would be the one that would do the dishes so that I could put together that report that was due at 8:00 in the morning. So we had he would hate me for saying this, but like role reversal, because he's like, we're not reversing roles. I'm the dad. It's just, this is what I take care of because this is what I'm good at. And you're the mom, but like, don't call me Mr. Mom. I'm Mr. Dad, And I was like, oh, you're right. Like, I shouldn't call you Mr. Mom. You're not a mom. You are the dad, and you're just pulling your weight because this is what we need you to do right now.
Yeah.
So I really there's a very vivid moment for me where I had picked up my son from school because he had a fever, and I brought him home and I just stuck him in bed. And I was like, I have calls, I have some emails, I have to get this done. I'll take you your dad actually will take you to the doctor when he gets home. So my husband comes home from work because he's in construction. So he got done at 3:30, 4:00. And he's like, where is he? I'm like, oh, he's in his bed. I'm like, you got to take him to the doctors. And he's like, okay. So he goes in, feels that he's burning up, takes his temperature. And he's like, Karin, he has 103 fever right now. He's like, if you paid half as much attention to us as you did to your work. And I was like, oh, yeah. Take the knife out of my heart.
Yeah, right to the heart.
Yes. Yeah. But I needed to hear that because I still was out under this illusion that work needed me, right? That I was so important because I was chasing this like significance or this feeling of importance. And I don't know why, but it was just one of those things. I put so much validation, I guess, on this external love and external praise that I thought I was getting. But it was really toxic. And so for me, I've actually gone the opposite direction where I'm like, you know what? All these titles and these paychecks, they don't mean anything, at least to me. Like, that is not what makes me tick. I wasn't happy. I had it all, right? 6-figure salary, nice director title, but who cares? Like, it didn't fulfill me. And so now I'm able to really step in and be the mom that I should have always been. Thanks for
your authenticity and sharing that story with us.
Sure.
I as you were speaking, I'm like, oh man, this feels like a clue that I should ask about. This feels like a thread I should pull on.
Sure.
So Karin, what's the thing that you're most proud of?
Yeah.
And you're like, what would be hilarious? You're like, obviously my corporate career is the thing that I'm most proud of. Oh. Obviously, that'd be amazing. You're like my corporate career. Like, why are you even asking? That'd be so funny. And dude, like, just deadpan.
I mean, I will say being asked to be chief of staff for a large telecommunications company was a definite bright spot in my career. I was the first female chief of staff in that division. It was really pushed me to my ultimate test. Could I do this? And there were definitely days I was like, oh, I'm terrible chief of staff. I should not be here. And there were other days I'm like, I'm crushing it. Yeah. You go through that roller coaster, but the fact that I was able to do it and not quit, because I definitely had some days where I was like, I think I should just bow out. I am proud of that. But for me now, the thing that I'm most proud of is having the courage to walk away from it all and to follow my dreams.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to give all the excuses. Oh, I got the golden handcuffs. I don't want to give up these big bonuses. I don't want to give up this cushy life. And honestly, you don't necessarily have to do that, right? You don't have to give up on that. So I think that for me has been the biggest thing that I'm proud of. I was asked actually after I left corporate to come be a CMO for someone's organization. And I actually turned that down, which I never thought I would be able to do. But fortunately, I was able to really stick to my guns and go, don't get sucked back in, right?
Yeah.
This is everything that you got rid of and that you no longer wanted to do or be. You have to remember that, even though it's the title that I always wanted, chief marketing officer, how exciting would that be to tell other people, right? Because that was the first thought. How exciting.
External validation again.
Oh, right. But I really stuck to my guns. And I think it's been so important for my boys to see that, to see me walk away from something that they knew didn't make me happy, right? Because they got the brunt of it plenty of times. And to now see me being so vibrant and excited, they get excited. Yeah. They'll ask me, Mom, how was your podcast? How'd that go? Or, after my event, they're like, how many books did you sell? How did it go? It's so cool for them to see that and just give them the courage so that someday they can follow their dreams too.
Yeah. It's so interesting that as you share that story about the CMO thing, I know so many people and I put myself in the same boat as high performer in corporate, right? High performer, you make good money, you got your thing, but you're not happy. I know so many people who decide to go, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. And within 2 years, something shows up on their doorstep that's remember the thing you said you didn't want?
Yep.
Here's it. I almost look at it as a Disney movie. It's like in Snow White, the apple. It's this thing is poison. And this is the thing you wanted. And the challenge for a lot of people, myself included, because I've had a couple moments like that too. Is to stick when what I hear, I think you and I are aligned with this. And I'm sure you coach your clients on this too, is what do you actually care about? And what's you need? And this goes back to the anchor. What's the thing you actually want? Because there's going to be stuff in the way. There's going to be a lot of temptations. You're going to get it. And I also think there's a tremendous amount of spiritual energy, whatever that means to you, in that when you say you don't want something because it's not aligned with you, the world will be yeah, are you sure about that? It's
right.
It's the snake in the Garden of Eden. I'm hey, this is
a test.
This super, super tasty apple. I know you told you don't want it. You might want to go take a bite. It's pretty good.
Yeah. And I do think you are sending a signal to the universe, right? You're telling that no, I'm actually serious about this. And it makes your commitment to whatever you do want to do so much stronger.
Yeah.
It's very symbolic. It is very symbolic.
Yeah. It's very symbolic. Because when you're in your corporate career, the CMO job would have been a yes, right? You would have been oh my God, yes. Who cares if my soul gets sucked dry and I'm working 80 hours a week? I need that thing. And then but it's good that you had it offered when you were ready to not have it, because you would probably not be here with me today and you'd probably be miserable.
I would be. I absolutely
would. You would be. Yeah. That's awesome. So Karin, what's something that you're afraid might actually be true about you? This is my therapy question.
Yeah. And my answer actually was going to be, I really try not to take on what other people think about me, because it doesn't actually matter. So my kids will fight all the time and, he called me a butthead. I'm well, are you a butthead? No, I'm not a butthead. Okay. Then it doesn't really matter if he said that or not. Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, someone else's perception of me is their reality.
Right.
And it doesn't actually matter. So I can be like, oh, no, I'm not pig-headed, or no. Like I don't really have it all together, whatever that thing is that you think about me. But if that's what they think, then that is their reality of me. And so it's really easy, I think, for us to like take on what other people think about us. And it's often negative stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll be like, we'll say something like, I'm such a ditz, I forgot this again, or whatever. And then we're basically telling ourselves that we're a ditz, and our brain's like, oh, okay, well, if you're a ditz, then I'm going to prove you right. Let's do something ditzy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it's like, you know what? You can think whatever you want about me, and I'm just going to try not to take that on. But I do think if you want like a straight answer, because I thought about this later, and
you've already answered. You've already answered this question once earlier in the episode. You know that, right?
No.
You're afraid that you might not actually be worthy of a dick pic.
Oh, right. Exactly.
That's one.
That is. But my husband will tell me a lot of times when I'm talking to him and I'm getting real passionate, he's like, you're yelling at me. Why are you yelling at me? I'm like, babe, I'm not yelling at you. I'm not mad. He's like, do you hear how you sound? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I'm perfectly fine. I'm just really just talking passionately about this. And he's like, you're yelling at me. And I'm like, okay, so that might be true, but I still think he's misguided, but I think
your husband and I would get along extremely well. We have two things very much in common in our relationships and in our laundry abilities, from what I'm hearing on this episode. Two things that I'm like, yep, this is literally describing my wife and I. I'll be like, why are you yelling? She's like, no, I'm just excited. I'm like, no, but you're yelling. You blew my eardrum out. I'm not yelling. You're yelling. You're yelling. The dog is over there cowering in the corner, but you're not mad. You're like, no, I'm not mad. I'm like, you're yelling. No, I'm not yelling. We need to have your husband on next, and we'll just riff on wives. That'd be great. All right, Karin, we're going to start to wrap it up. We got a couple more questions. So you'd alluded to this one before. So this one is about how you see the world. So the question is like, how do you see the world? And I have a feeling it's going to be a positive answer. That's my guess. Is there going to be something positive coming out here?
Of course, because negative energy just has no place in my life. And I hope in your listeners' lives, it's just toxic. So I really view the world as to what I see outside the window. And, when we moved from New Jersey to South Carolina, so many people warned us about how nobody down there likes Northerners. You're not going to fit in. They're going to hate you. Be careful. Watch out. And I'm like, what? Like, really? Are people in the South, like, they really don't like Northerners? Okay. Move down here. Like day one, our neighbors 2 houses over, like bought us a pizza and like brought stuff over because they knew we didn't have all of our appliances and moving stuff yet. Yeah. And everybody's been so welcoming, stopping by, introducing themselves. The kids made friends day one. And I'm like, what? Okay. This isn't the South, like, that people talk about, or the way that they want to give a rap to the South. And I don't know, maybe that's just the Greenville area, and I don't know. But from my perspective, what I see out my window is so much goodness. I see neighbors helping each other. Yeah. There was a stray dog and I like stopped and I called the owner and I got the dog back to the person. And, like that, those are like real stories that the media and the news, they don't want to talk about. No, right? That doesn't sell. No, nobody wants to hear about like, oh, this week in Greenville, we had some new families moving in and the neighbors came by and said hello. Like that's not a news story. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I just really try to believe that most people in the world are good. They're just trying to go make a living, have their little piece of land and have a little fun on the weekends and enjoy life and just go about their business. And I agree. Yeah. Awesome, Karin. All right. Let's talk about the book for a minute, since you are a published author, not just an author, but a published author. Give us the quick synopsis of the book, micro synopsis. Where can people pick it up? What else do you want us to know about the book specifically? Awesome. So the way we kind of describe it is the sexy, the funny, the humiliating, the gross, and a whole lot more. It is really a tale of me and my vagina from day one, kind of like realizing that I even have one, all the way through to, 35 years old, finally experiencing that ultimate orgasm. So yeah, you're probably going, holy crap, were you 35? And you're like, yeah, I was. Because most women, again, won't talk about that, right? They are pretending that they're having these amazing sex lives. Mm-hmm. And in reality, they're not. So there's a lot of really fun moments, getting your first period, mistaking a UTI for a STD, and all these little, oh my God, ridiculous, right? I was like ready to murder my husband, boyfriend at the time, but I was like, you get me an STD. He did not, thankfully. So it's just it's bigger than just my vagina though, because it really is a journey through womanhood.
Yeah.
And all the experiences and the ups and downs that we have in a very authentic, raw, and honest way.
Yeah. I was over here smiling because I just had a thought. You're like, I'm sharing literally my lady parts to the world and nobody's sending me a dick pic. Like, it's like, You've got it all. You're like, listen, y'all, like you can buy this for like $11.99 or $24.99 or whatever it is. And like, I'm just requesting that, like, can you just validate me with
Like, I might get a slew of dick pics now. My husband's gonna be like, what is wrong with you?
It's like, Karen, you're literally showing us ours. Like literally, like, like the like elementary, like show me yours, I'll show you ours, like the elementary school thing. You're like, here we go. Yeah. That's awesome. So where can people pick it up?
Absolutely. So it's available online where books are sold. So Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. Select stores in South Carolina are carrying it. So nice. Fiction Addiction has got a few copies and a couple of the Barnes and Nobles here in the Greenville area, as well as Charleston actually, and Hilton Head. So cool. So thankful for their support.
Yeah. I like to always ask authors on as well. Will you sign books if you like to go to the store? If you've got any, you'll sign books. People want to get an autographed copy. Cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Let's talk about the second thing now. Besides being an author, you're a speaker and you do coaching. You've kind of mentioned you're like talk for a minute about who's your ideal client and like what does that look like? What do we want to know about there?
Yeah. So I really say like successful working women who want to rock their reinvention is my sweet spot. So whether it's leaving corporate or it's actually just staying in corporate, but setting up those boundaries so that you can really have a better, more quality life, that, working with women is pretty much the extent of who I work with. I've had a couple of guys that I've coached, but, I think just the working mom thing, it's like been there, done that. And it's so easy to relate. And I know a lot of the tips and tricks that you can employ to really get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I do personal brand strategy work through an awesome company called Brand Builders Group. And the first thing we say is when you start out, you are most powerfully ready to serve the person you once were. No matter what you do, consulting, coaching, if you're like a financial advisor who used to not have any money, like that's the person most of us are best at serving the people we once were. Yeah. Because it's very identifiable. That's awesome. So Karen, you got a website. We'll put your website notes in the link. The link to the book is there. Is there anything else, any other places that we can find you or anywhere else connected to you? Obviously probably on Instagram, social, LinkedIn, anything else?
Yep. Instagram, Twitter, those are the best places to find me. Facebook, Karin Freeland Life Coaching. So yeah. And if anyone's doing events, so, you want someone to come out and speak or, even book clubs, doing some of those around the book. So yeah, let me know.
You'll do virtual if it's local, you'll do in person. If it's virtual, you hop on. Cool. Awesome, Karen. Well, thank you so much for being on. It was really fun getting to know you over the last hour or so. I have a tradition on the show, and I love when my guests leave us with some words of wisdom, and they got to be short and sweet. And I'm just going to say this again, because I've had a few guests who are like, oh, short and sweet. And then they give me a paragraph. I'm like, it's not short and sweet. So what do you got for us?
Right.
And you're a writer, so you probably get this. What do you got for us?
I would say, trust your intuition. You have all the answers that you need inside you. Trust them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Karen. Best of luck as the book. Be looking for my 2 to 3 star review. I guess I can't do a 2 or 3 star. I'll do a 3 star. I can't wait to read it. I'm going to pick up a copy today for my wife and I. We will probably, no offense, we'll probably share a copy because we both have a Kindle account. Sorry, you're not going to get the royalties.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. Maybe I feel like I should probably just buy 2. I have a little bit of shame over here now. Maybe I should just buy 2. And what I say to everybody, I was thinking about your book. This makes a great gift for the holidays too, for any woman in your life, who is a reader, entertaining. Like it sounds like it's got so many valuable things in terms of it's funny. So it's entertaining, but it's also like educational.
Yes. And I would say baby showers, bridal showers, like such a perfect time in a woman's life to give them this book.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Karin. Best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and give us a shout out or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.